Konnichiwa, welcome to the Samurai Way podcast, where ancient Japanese wisdom meets today's challenges. I'm Lori Tsugawa, the author of Let the Samurai Be Your Guide, speaker, and your host. So today, our episode, we're featuring Harold Payne, and it's going to be a conversation that you won't want to miss. It'll encourage you to live with courage, purpose, resilience, and honor. So a bit about Harold, he's amazing. Harold Payne is a multi-platinum and Posse Award-winning songwriter, performer, and speaker whose uplifting music has touched audiences around the world. He has written songs for legendary artists including Rod Stewart, Patti LaBelle, The Temptations, Bobby Womack, Roland, Peter, Paul, and even Snoop Dogg. His songwriting has earned international recognition, including contributions to award-winning and chart-topping albums. So please help me welcome Harold to our episode. Welcome, Harold.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
So that's a little bit about your background. And if you'd like to share with the audience how you got there, maybe you're growing up in Gardena, California, and how it naturally progressed and was actually revealing your life to you.
Yes, that's, of course, my Japanese-American connection is growing up in Gardena and with a very large Nisei Sansei population as well as other ethnic groups. And that was my introduction, and my late wife was a Sansei. And then I went to UCLA and studied linguistics and Spanish and started playing music, which led to me traveling a lot and also working on various projects, which led me eventually to doing music for some films and the latest project, David Ono's Defining Courage, where my song Quiet Heroes is the closing number to that. And so I've been touring all over with that, and that also led to a film called The 100th Infantry, The 100th Seeds of Aloha. It's a documentary film about the 100th Infantry. And so it's been a wonderful experience. I've traveled to Europe and Hawaii and all over the States because of those two entities. So it's been a wonderful experience.
You shared a little bit with me about the 100th and something about Puka and how the 100th and the 442nd were combined later, but how did that come to be?
Right. Well, actually, right after Pearl Harbor in 1941, the 100th Infantry, there was a big response because, of course, they hit their home territory of all these people that volunteered, and some of them were already in the reserves. They were a little bit older than the Japanese Americans that volunteered from the internment camps, whichever euphemism you want to use for that, but concentration camps, internment camps. But so actually they were the first, before the 442, they were 8 or 9 months already in battle in Europe and did a lot of substantial things before the 100th, which were all mainly volunteers out of the camps. Although there were a lot of Hawaiians of AJAs, they refer themselves as Americans of Japanese ancestry, that were also part of the 442. But the 100th Infantry, like as I said, was 8 or 9 months ahead. And actually there was a lot of friction between, they called them the Kotonks and the Buddha heads. Supposedly the Kotonk name for the mainland Japanese Americans was like a coconut falling to the ground, but it was like the sound of the helmet falling when they were falling to the ground by being bested by their 100th mates. But some of it was friendly rivalry, but some of it was actually, because the Hawaiians they were a little older, they were more hang loose, easy going, but one of the generals came up with a bright idea of bringing the 100th soldiers to the internment camps. And when they saw the conditions there and realized that these 19, 20-year-old guys that volunteered while their families were in these horrible conditions, it stopped all of that. They really realized what these guys had gone through and what they were volunteering for. And the thing that always got me was that they basically took one for the team. They knew that all this prejudice that had existed that extended from the Japanese nationals that a lot of Americans didn't distinguish. But by doing this, risking their lives, they knew that the next generation would have a better chance to assimilate. That always, it just really touches my soul. And like I said, I had three of these guys on my block growing up. So the 100th Infantry, a term of endearment for them is the one Puka Puka, because many people know about the puka shell. It has a hole in it. That's what a puka means, hole in Hawaiian. So since it's round, the nickname for the 100th Infantry was the one Puka Puka, the one hole. And so that became their nickname, the one Puka Puka and the 442. And I wrote a song called the one Puka Puka and the 442.
Well, we'll have to put that into the information because that one's not as well known and where I live, it's not as well known as the next one, which I'd love for you to speak a little bit about, the one that you did for Defining Courage.
Yes, I'm just doing the one song for Defining Courage. In the film, myself and my partner, Dave Kopaz, created 18 songs for the film, and we actually have a soundtrack album that's just coming out called 100th Seeds of Aloha Soundtrack. And Quiet Heroes and the Puka Puka, which I had written before, are on there, as well as many new songs from our experience in going to Europe and Hawaii and going to all these battle sites, etc.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about Defining Courage and your experience with it. It's still going, right? It's still.
Yes,
Mm-hmm,
it was going for a couple of years before I joined,
mm-hmm,
and I think they originally were just going to make a video or something, and then people wanted to experience it, and
mm-hmm,
it's grown, and they have like an 8 voice choir and an orchestra, and it's songs and videos. And David Ono is a master storyteller.
mm-hmm.
He's the most awarded newscaster in California, and very well respected. Of He's actually Hapa, half
Yes.
Japanese, and wonderful person. And he assembled this event, and he gathered all these videos from going over to all these battle sites, and so the story is really interesting. And then in between, the choir is singing songs that relate to various places along the way. And when we went to Berkeley and some of the other places, they had a 50 voice choir from Berkeley behind our 8 voice choir. So I got to sing
Wow.
Quiet Heroes with a voice and 58 people singing behind me.
Oh,
It's just, wow, what experience. So and it keeps evolving. He'll make little tweaks. And there's real interesting there, like there's one about a guy who in Europe and these battle sites, the Japanese American soldiers are still very revered. There's monuments and there's organizations that still gather. They do reenactments of some of the battles. And this one gentleman, Sebastian Rohr, went out with a metal detector and would find things, and he found a ring from a high school ring from 1940 from McKinley High School in Hawaii. And a lot of people wanted to buy it from him, but he wanted to get it back to the people, the family.
uh-huh.
And they were so blown away with to get this call from a guy in France about finding the high school ring. And so they've made a really strong connection. In fact, Sebastian isn't being, toured around by the family of the people with the ring. So all these connections made, but it's amazing to see that reverence that the people in Briere and some of the other battle sites, because they basically saved the lives of these people. Because the Germans would come and just, they didn't want them to conspire with the enemy, so they killed a lot of the locals. And like the German army, I don't want to relate it to the current German, was, wartime, of course. And a lot of these conscripted as well their will. So, and there's a lot of the Japanese American soldiers, of course, had respect for these people, but they had to fight against each other, of course.
It was. My dad always says nobody wins in the
Right.
war. You know.
So, but just going to some of these battle sites
Mm.
and seeing the conditions, and we'd go there for an hour. It was so cold, and these guys had dug foxholes and were eating rations and were there for weeks at a time. And behind any tree, you didn't know if it was an enemy or one of your own. It's just unbelievable the courage and the bravery and the guys had. It was unbelievable.
I always think of them as modern samurai warriors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did showed a lot of integrity and honor to honor that you've been adopted into. I see
No,
you that, yeah.
a lot of my Japanese American call me honorary head, honorary sensei or whatever. I know
Uh-huh.
that's for that's kind of a sounds a little bit like a harsh word, but it's a term.
It is. It is. They must have thought a lot of you. And before we end, I'd like you to know if you could share a little bit more about defining courage, because it's still going on. It hasn't
Yes,
stopped yet.
uh, we've made a lot of different stops: Hawaii, Seattle, Berkeley, just did Salt Lake City. We're going to go to Heart Mountain, which was one of the campsites, and we're going to Chicago, and then next year to Portland. And it's a wonderful show. He's a great storyteller. There's an 8-piece choir and an additional choir beyond that. And he tells a story using the video of all these places, and it keeps evolving. It keeps getting better and adding things to it. It's a wonderful show, and it's usually like a 500 to 1,000 seat venue, and it's usually in areas where there's a large Japanese American population, but a lot of Hakujins, Howleys come as well. It's very educational and very inspiring and really honoring these people. There's only a handful left. Most of them in their late 90s and hundreds. There's a few left, some from the MIA, as well as the 442 and the 100th, the 522. IS, I meant. It's a wonderful show, and I get to do the closing number, a song called Quiet Heroes, with the
I love
choir
that.
orchestra.
I love
Wonderful.
that song.
Thank you.
I've heard it a long time ago. Well, not 50 years ago, but I heard it a while ago, and I've always loved it. I usually end up crying, and when I see the pictures, especially that one in Oregon, I saw my dad and in the picture with his best friend who was also in the war. He was in Bruyères. They used to go to Bruyères while he was alive. So this is like going full circle, and their story needs to be kept alive, because most people don't realize what they went through. It was hard. It was very hard.
We're going there and getting the whole story and how the Germans always had the higher ground, and they cut the trees down so they could see everybody, and they put water flooded areas to make it harder for them to go. And there were situations where 6 other battalions had tried like rescue the lost battalion or whatever,
Yes.
and they sent in. They did such a good job. They kept sending in, and they were really very well known for their heroics and their battle strength.
Because at one time they weren't wanted by many of the commanding officers, but there were some that took a chance, and they were glad that they said they were the best soldiers that they had. And
Yeah,
that is the samurai way. That's the Japanese way to do your best and to bring honor into whatever you do, whether it's small or large. It's always that the Bushido code, I think, is so strong. It's permeated, even though Bushido or it's not allowed to carry your swords anymore. That spirit permeates Japan and makes it a wonderful place to visit and just to experience, because I think that people say go to other countries and then come to Japan, because you won't be able to leave Japan, or you'll want to come back to Japan because it's so wonderful.
as I have many times.
Mm-hmm. And you're so blessed to do that. Is there anything else that you would like to share? I really appreciate this, and you explaining things a little bit more, and I will hear more when I get to go to the performance in Portland. So that'll be great. But I'd like to. Well, we will some of your information, and then also how to get the soundtracks and where the next show is going to be. So, is there anything else you would like to share with the audience before we wrap this up?
Just that it's an honor to be doing all these events, and I was just lucky to be born where I was born and to have that influence in my life.
Wow, that's amazing. Thank you. Really appreciate you being here and sharing this with the Samurai Way audience. I know they're going to love this one, and there's so much more that can be explored with this theme. And my parents were both in camps, but dad was at Minidoka, mom was at Tule Lake, and that was probably the harder one because that was where the no-nos or the
Yeah.
resistors went, and she wouldn't talk about it. She just will not talk about it, but forced both of them to come with us, my husband and I, to Minidoka so that they could see it. And I'll just end with this. This is so funny. My dad looks around at the barracks. He goes, wow. He says, this looks like the Hilton compared to what I
Yeah, right.
remember
Sanitizing it
Payne.
now.
Right.
Yeah.
He says, I don't remember Payne. I don't remember the floors looking like this. And he says, wow, this is great. He got a lot of laughs, but he was serious. He said, it didn't look this way. It was paper, tar paper. What do you call that? The barracks were covered with tar paper. With that kind of paper, sand would blow up. But they made the
No
most of
shoji
it.
screens.
They made the most of it, and I'm so proud of them. And I know that what you shared about, they paved the way for us. It wouldn't be so easy for me, being a sansei, to get that prejudice off, because I did experience some, but nothing like what my grandparents and parents. So, and people like you are bringing their honor to the forefront. I think is great. So more people will become educated and hopefully learn about the samurai way. So I want to thank you all for being here. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we'll have Harold back again. I have so many great guests, and he's one of them. We will certainly get a hold of him again to see how it's going and on his tour. I want to thank you all for being here. Please like and share. You could leave a review. That would be great for us to continue this information about the samurai way. So I'll say mata ne for now. Bye bye. Ja mata.
Right.